One of the most famous healing herbs in the history of traditional Chinese medicine has been banned in the US for over 20 years. Now, this particular herb became a popular addition to weight loss pills, performance enhancing supplements, and other various kinds of supplements. Now, it was popular until, in particular, the death of the Baltimore Orioles pitcher, a guy named Steve Beckler, in 2003. Now, here's what you may not know. About 10 times as many people are hospitalized from Tylenol every year, and 5 times as many die every single year from Tylenol than this particular herb. So let's talk about what this actual healing herb was, how we've used it for several thousand years, and a little bit of this sort of conspiracy around why it's become banned in the US. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Alex Heyne, board licensed acupuncturist and doctor of acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, and author of the health book Master the Day. So let's jump in. Now, the herb in question here is called Ephedra, or Ma Huang. You know, Ma Huang has been used for several thousands of years, particularly for upper respiratory infections or for asthma. It is one of the most life-saving herbs for acute asthma attacks in particular. Without it, you cannot treat a life-threatening asthma attack. Now, the irony behind everything that's happened here is that while Ephedra has become banned in the USA, the pharmaceutical companies can still use something that's molecularly very similar called pseudoephedrine, right? False ephedra. If you know the medication Sudafed, then you know what I'm talking about. So the irony is, despite everything that has happened here, the actual herb, which is a lot safer, has been banned, and a very molecularly closely related medication or medicine called Sudafed is still legally making tens, hundreds of millions of dollars a year from some pharmaceutical company. But what led to this actual ban of Ephedra? Let's talk about this sort of series of interesting events before we get into a bit about how Ma Huang is used in traditional Chinese medicine. Now, in the 1990s, the use of Ephedra in dietary supplements grew rapidly, but also at the same time, so did reports of serious side effects, including heart palpitations, high blood pressure, strokes, seizures, and even rarely death. Now, Ephedra stimulates the central nervous system, which can strain the cardiovascular system, especially when it's combined with caffeine, or especially at high doses. Now, a lot of these people that were having adverse effects either were using it improperly. Keep in mind, they were using the extract, often in supplements, at a much higher dose of the active alkaloids than you would in the actual Ma Huang Ephedra plant. The second was that this was often combined with caffeine. It was often used as like a performance enhancing kind of drug. And third, the people who are having serious life-threatening, health consequences from taking this typically had pre-existing conditions to begin with. Normal people were not becoming hypertensive magically from the use of this alkaloid. Now, around this time, there began an increased phase of scrutiny by the FDA. The US FDA began receiving complaints linking Ephedra to severe health issues. Now, between 1993 and 2003, there were over 16,000 adverse events associated with it. Although many people claim that the true number was probably a lot higher, because if you're buying supplements, does everyone share every little weird reaction they're having and report it? Of course not. Now, around this time, some of the science was coming into play. The studies came particularly on the ephedrine alkaloids added to these supplements. They found that particularly when used in excessive amounts or by individuals with pre-existing health conditions, there could be some really significant dangers. So it was associated with adverse effects like cardiovascular and neurological events. One of the biggest ones being the death of professional athletes like that Baltimore Orioles pitcher Steve Beckler in 2003. So around 2004, the FDA decided to basically ban ephedra containing products. After this extensive investigation and debate, the FDA banned the sale of supplements containing it in April 2004. And apparently this is one of the first times the FDA has ever banned a dietary supplement. They determined that the risk of it added to supplements basically outweighed any potential benefits. So what is Ma Huang Ephedra actually used for in traditional Chinese medicine? When we hear stories and anecdotes like this, it's easy to get scared, right, of this particular herb. Even going back several thousands of years, skilled doctors made it clear, you need to be careful with this plant called Ephedra, Ma Huang. The reason for that is, like a lot of current asthma medications, it can cause an elevated heart rate, it can cause arrhythmias and that kind of thing, but not in the hands of a skilled physician or a doctor. But the plant has that capability because of the active alkaloids that also cause the same bronchodilation that are life-saving in the case of someone who has an acute asthma attack. For me, as someone who is a lifelong asthmatic, I've taken albuterol inhalers before many times and gotten an elevated heart rate from that or been unable to sleep afterwards. So there are pharmaceuticals that will have that same effect as well. They are mobilizing a lot of these stress hormones and they have an effect on the nervous system that will cause an elevation of the heart rate or even arrhythmias. But It is a life-saving herb traditionally used, like for example, in the formula called dingchuantang. This is basically a rest asthma formula. And this formula has been used for a very, very long time for acute asthma attacks. There was actually a famous traditional Chinese medicine doctor who didn't have access to mahuang ephedra, the plant, and I think he was in somewhere remote, and his wife actually had an asthma attack and she died from it. And he said, trying to treat acute asthma attacks without mahuang ephedra is like being in a fight with one hand behind your back. There's nothing else like it that will treat an upper respiratory infection that dangerously involves the lungs. You know, the closing of the lungs, whether it's from the inflammation or from the phlegm. Like for example, with asthmatics, they can have both. They'll often have excessive sputum and coughing, and then the wheezing as well. And it's mahuang, this ephedra plant, that will treat it more than anything. So let's talk about the irony of all of this here, because you see this a lot in America, where American healthcare is so damn profit-oriented. Dietary supplements containing ephedra, check out the study here. They have been linked to 117 deaths nationwide and 18,000 reports of other medical problems like heart attacks, psychosis, heat stroke, potentially seizures, that kind of thing, according to the FDA. That sounds like a lot, and that sounds quite scary, right? But check out this second research paper here. This one is on acetaminophen. We're talking about Tylenol. We're talking about some of the most common medications that people self-prescribe on a daily basis. And this is a paper on acetaminophen toxicity. Acetaminophen toxicity is the second most common cause of liver transplantation worldwide and the most common cause of liver transplantation in the US. Responsible for 56,000 ER visits, 2,600 hospitalizations, and 500 deaths per year in the United States. Let's just compare. 117 deaths due to ephedra combined, and this is in a weight loss supplement. This is not taken as the plant, versus 500 deaths every single year from Tylenol. You be the judge. I'm not saying this is a grand conspiracy, but this is sort of status quo for American healthcare. You have a plant that's very effective, safe when used in the hand of a trained doctor or practitioner of a certain kind of medicine. You have a couple, probably pharma bros, that put it into a supplement, weight loss pills, to make millions. Then the plant gets banned, but the pharmaceutical companies can still produce something very similar in terms of active constituents. And over-the-counter medication or medicine like Tylenol that causes many more deaths every single year is still allowed to be on the shelves. You be the judge at the powers in play that are making those decisions and making those calls here. Now, ephedra is just one of the many very effective healing plants and formulas in traditional Chinese medicine. But if you don't really know where symptoms are coming from, it's very difficult to know how to actually treat what's going on. And in traditional Chinese medicine, it's very unique. The symptoms and which organs and physiological pathways they're associated with. So I've actually put together a free quiz. It's just basically a 5 or 10 page self-assessment where basically you go through every single symptom you have and it'll spit out what your symptoms are coming from, what is the root cause according to traditional Chinese medicine. It's the first link right below this video. You can also just go to dralexheyne.com/quiz and that will actually help you to see where your symptoms are coming from. Take the time, go through that. It also links to other videos that we've shot here on those symptoms, so you can do a deep dive regarding whatever it is you're going through right now. Also, don't forget, I work with a limited number of new patients every single month, virtually or in person in my clinic in Los Angeles. If you guys would like to learn more, go right below this video and there should be info to call my practice and clinic, or just email us, or you can just go to dralexheyne.com/clinic. And besides that, don't forget, I have another related video right here on some of the most effective healing herbs in traditional Chinese medicine that you might not be familiar with here in the US. So check it out.